Hello, hello, hello. What is up, YouTube land, wherever you happen to be watching this from? Just wanted to drop something real quick. I'm in the middle of recording my own little course that is coming up very soon, and it is called Becoming Undependent from Generational Change to Choices. And I know one of the things I get all the time when I tell people, what the hell does undependent mean? Got you. So, when you think about independent versus dependent, I think both have a very negative connotation, right? So if you're independent, you want to think fierce, badass, whatever the case may be, right? But it also has that, okay, I'm lonely, I'm on an island, I'm all by myself, I don't need anyone. Now, anyone can tell you Psych 101, nobody is an island. We are social beings, social creatures. That's why we live, whether it's our chosen family, family of origin, whatever the case may be. We are meant to be social creatures, and that's why we have survived as long as we have. Now, dependent also has a negative connotation in that you are dependent on others for your survival, which is great if you are a baby, child, those types of things. So that is your independent versus dependent. Now, I'm not saying I buy into the negative connotations of both. Both have their pros and cons. Absolutely. There are times when you need to be dependent. There are times when you need to be independent. That goes without saying. But I think undependent is a great marriage of those two concepts. It's where you have that balance of you have your times to be independent or both dependent. And depending on your situation, where you're at, you are fully in control of the choice that you make. Now, how does this relate to narcissistic parents and toxic family dynamics and all of those things? Because generally, individuals who have been a part of a toxic or narcissistic family will find that they have either gone to either of the extremes, right? They're either fiercely independent, where they refuse to even get involved with anybody because they have such traumatic issues with that, or they continue the cycle and they become dependent and an enabler for a narcissist of their own. And that's generally what we see when we look at the psychological patterns of this. And even from a personal experience in my own situation, I was raised by a narcissistic father. So even amongst my three siblings, I could see each of the reactions that we had towards being raised by a narcissistic father. I tended to skew towards the completely dependent side, turning to bad relationships and typical bad boy, daddy syndrome type relationships. Another one of my siblings went completely independent. They're an island. They live amongst themselves and they suffer a lot of burnout and things of that nature. So, not saying that it is wrong, but I do say that they are maladaptive behaviors to being raised in a particular household and then continuing those cycles. I myself have 4 children, and I got to a point where I saw some of the generational patterns being repeated in how I parented and subsequently on how my children reacted. And that's where I kind of was like, enough is enough of this shit, quite frankly. And I did a lot of inner work and I'm still doing it. It's ongoing work. I'm not an expert. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that the term undependent just resonates with me so well because it takes the best of both independence and dependence. It puts it together and it creates this new level of consciousness where you can be one or the other when the situation requires it, but not because you're automatically programmed to behave in that way. So I hope when you hear me talk about my course, Becoming Undependent, that whole theme makes a little bit more sense to you and why I talk about independence as the new norm, quite frankly. I mean, we need people, we need our family, again, whether that's your family of origin, your chosen family, friends, whatever the case may be. Everyone needs a support system, particularly even more so if you had a less than ideal childhood, quite frankly. And again, I am constantly happy to talk about that. If you look at the links in my bio, I do have a complimentary 30-minute call where we can discuss what options might be great to work with you. There's also my no contact checklist that it's free. I definitely advise everyone to go ahead and download that and see whether that is something that might be good for you. But generally, in my course, I go through a framework where you're basically getting, I don't want to say a do-over because obviously you can't do over your childhood, but you do get the chance to reparent yourself and rebuild, and then come across and be the person that I think ultimately you were meant to be, and you would have been had it not been for the narcissistic mother, father, whoever it was, mother figure, father figure in your childhood. And in doing so, my main objective with all of this is that, well, one, the reason that I did it for myself, quite honestly, was I did not want my children on a therapist couch 20 years from now because of some messed up shit that I did. Not that I'm knocking therapy by any stretch of the imagination. I've been in and out of therapy myself for 20 years. I have a degree in psychology. I value the practice very, very much. But there is a time and a place, I think, for all of that. So, particularly with the framework that I have, it's the realization, like the why that this is something that you need to do, right? Then there's the rebuilding, your self-worth, your self-esteem, the reparenting part of it. Then there's the rebuild. What will that look like? Should you put into having boundaries, going no contact, whatever that specific thing looks like for you. Then you have the reconnecting, whether it's with your children, your partner, your work-life balance, all of those things that somehow got or never quite, were good, stable things. And then, you really have to kind of dig deep and do a lot of inner work in, reclaiming that vision for yourself, and then putting in the work, building the foundation so that you don't go back into old habits. Because, once you go no contact, and especially with a narcissist, it's really, really never truly over. And those old hurts will continue to come up. And then you really have to get to crafting that legacy, that plan going forward, your new why statement, your new legacy statement, your new vision board. And these are really important factors that I think helped me. And I kind of did them inadvertently when I went no contact with my own father 6 years ago. And I kind of bumbled and stumbled my way through, the whole process. But yeah, it's just something that I think in doing the foundation work in this way, when you come across those challenges, I think it becomes a little less difficult when you face the next challenge. Because that's the thing about life, right? You think you have something figured out, and the universe is like, okay, let me throw you another curveball. And it's life. It's just having that toolkit, having that stable foundation so that we don't go down the rabbit hole of the things that are familiar to us. Because if toxic relationships are what are familiar to us, then that is what we're going to fall back on, not because it's healthy, not because we want to, but because it's familiar, and the brain craves familiarity. So if we reprogram the brain to say, okay, this is no longer familiar, what's going to make me most comfortable, you're more likely to fall back onto your new toolkit. So again, I hope that all those things make sense. Please make those free options. All the links and places to find me are, in the bio here. Subscribe to the channel if this resonates with you. And please leave me some comments. I am happy to have dialogue and go back and forth. I know going no contact with narcissistic parents is not something that's really talked about, and it's taboo. If you are not comfortable or you don't feel like it's safe for you to leave a public comment in a forum like YouTube or wherever you're watching this video, please reach out to me privately. My DMs on Instagram are always open. I'm the one that actually answers them. And, let's have a conversation. My goal is that no one has to suffer what not just myself, but many other people who I talked to have gone through similar things without any true resources, to go forward into making this right for not only themselves, but for the next generation as well. So like I said, if you like what you heard, click the subscribe button, follow me on all my various platforms, reach out, talk to me, whatever it is. So again, I thank you if you've made it to to this far, and I really, really hope for peace for you, for freedom for you. And again, I am here to talk when you need to. Bye.